in example 8C, the last example of this section, we are going to do kind of this combination problem. Okay, take a look at it. You've got -1 times D times B plus 3 times C times D. So there's a lot going on here. You've got a combination of matrix multiplication, you've got scalar multiplication going on, you've got addition, okay? So there's a lot going on and you're gonna have to follow the order of operations, okay? So there's a lot involved. We're gonna break it up step by step. So if we think back to PEMDAS, remember, we're gonna do multiplication before addition. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna break this up into a couple of parts. We're gonna first concentrate on -1 times D times B, and then later we'll come back and we'll do the 3 times C times D. And then once we have the two results, then we will add them together, okay? All right, I am gonna start with -1 times D times B, okay? So these matrices that are involved in this problem, B, C, and D, remember you can find those on page 6. So if you flip back to page 6, at the top, right when example 8 starts, you can go and grab those 3 matrices, okay? All right, so let's talk here, okay? Within this statement, -1 times D times B, okay, there's still multiple things going on, okay? You have regular matrix multiplication because you're supposed to be multiplying D and B, and you also have scalar multiplication going on, okay? Because you've got that -1 out front. So the question you might be wondering, which one should I do first, okay? Well, it really doesn't matter, okay? You could do D times B, get that result, and then multiply everything by -1. Or you can take -1 and multiply it by D. It would not get distributed to both, so don't do that. But you could do -1 times D and then get that result and multiply by B, okay? I'm gonna do the more obvious thing. I am gonna go ahead and do D times B, okay? And then once I get that result, I'm gonna come back and multiply by the number. I think that's the safest bet, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and flip back to page 6 and grab those matrices, okay? Remember, it's very important that you remember that when you do matrix multiplication, the order matters. So you have to do it in the order stated. So on the left, you need to go ahead and write down D, okay? So D is going to be, if you flip back, it's 3, -2, 0, -1, 1, and 2. And then on the right, you're going to put B, okay? So B is a 2 by 2 matrix. It's -3, 1, 2, and 5, okay? All right, first things first, we've got to make sure we can actually perform this multiplication, okay? So D is a 3 by 2 matrix. B is a 2 by 2. The inner numbers match, okay? So we can do the multiplication. The result is going to be a 3 by 2, okay? So we're going to go ahead and map out a 3 by 2 as our answer. So we're going to have something with 3 rows and 2 columns. Okay, so it's going to look like this. All right. So once I get this set up, we can start doing our dot products. Okay, let's do it. All right, so we are going to start in the first row, first column. Okay, so I'm going to do the dot product of the first row, first column. Okay, so we're going to get, remember, we're going to multiply corresponding elements together and then add them up. So we're going to get 3 times -3 plus -2 times 2. Okay. All right, moving over. Okay, we're going to do the first row, second column now. Okay, so we need to change up what we're doing the dot product of just a bit. Okay, we're still going to do the first row, but now the second column. Okay, so we're going to have 3 times 1 and -2 times 5, and then we're going to add them up. Okay, shifting over to the next row. Okay, this is the second row, first column. Okay, so let me go and erase my red lines. Okay. The red lines are just to help me keep track of where I'm doing the dot product, okay? So we've got the second row, first column, okay? This will be 0 times -3 if you multiply the top elements, And then if you multiply your second elements together, you'll get -1 times 2. Add those guys. All right, so let's do second row, second column. Okay, we're still in the second row, but now we're going to change the column to be the second column. And we will get 0 times 1 plus -1 times 5. All right, last row. Let's jump to the third row, first column. All right, so now we're going to have to grab for the dot product the third row, first column. So we're going to have 1 times -3 plus 2 times 2. And for our last spot in the third row, second column, we will do the dot product of still the third row, but now the second column, and we will end up with 1 times 1 plus 2 times 5. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so we just need to simplify this. Okay, so let's go to the next, or right below, I should say. Okay, and let's simplify this. Okay, we need a lot of room for this example, so I'm just going to go right below and clean this up. Okay, so let's do our arithmetic here. Okay, so in the first row, first column, we've got -9 plus a -4. That's -13. And then first row, second column, we've got 3 plus a -10. That's going to be -7. And then second row, first column, we've got 0 plus a -2. So that's -2. And then second row, second column, we've got 0 plus a -5. So this will be -5. And then bottom row, bottom left, we've got -3 plus 4. That's going to be +1. And then third row, second column, we've got 1 plus 10. That's 11. Okay, so that is the result of D times B. Okay, so remember what we're after. Okay, I'm trying to do this part. Okay, we need to go back now and do the scalar multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to go to my result of D times B, and I'm going to multiply by -1. So let's go do this scalar multiplication. Okay, so down here, I'm just going to write out to the side that now we're going to do -1 times D times B. Okay, so all that means, remember how scalar multiplication works, you're just multiplying by a number. You're going to take every number in this result and multiply it by -1. So essentially what's going to happen is it's going to change the sign of every number inside. Okay, so we're going to get +13, +7, +2, +5, -1, -11. Okay, that is the result of -1 times D times B. Okay, this is not the final answer, but I'm going to box it because once we come back, once we do the next part, 3 times C times D, and get that result, we're going to have to add it back to this result. Okay, so I want to be able to easily find that. Okay, all right, so now what do we have to do? Okay, we are going to work on the 3 times the C times the D. Okay, I'm going to do it the same way. Okay, I'm going to do C times D first, get that result, and then multiply all the numbers by 3. Okay, so let's go down here. Okay, so I'm going to write down 3 times C times D. Okay, again, I'm going to work on the C times D part first. Okay, so you're going to have to go back to page 6 and dig up the matrix C. Okay, again, mandatory. C has to go on the left, can't go on the right. Order matters here. Okay, so we're going to have -1, 0, and 2, and then 4, -3, 1, -2, 3, 5. Okay, D goes on the right. We just saw D. D is 3, -2, and then 0, -1, 1, and 2. Okay, so there we go. Let's do this. Okay, let's check to make sure we can do this multiplication. C is a 3 by 3. D is a 3 by 2. The inner numbers match. You're going to get a 3 by 2, which is super because remember what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to get this result and add it back to -1 times D times B. So they're going to have to be the same size. Okay, so Luckily, the one we just got, the result in yellow, it's a 3 by 2, okay? And so since this is going to be a 3 by 2, they're going to be the same size, and we're going to be able to add them together. That's what we want, okay? All right, so we're getting another 3 by 2 matrix, so let's go ahead and map this out. Okay, so again, we're going to need 3 rows. I think I made that a little too big. 3 rows and 2 columns. Okay, so here we go. All right. We are set now. Okay, let's start first row, first column. Okay, so we're doing the first row, first column. Okay, again, you're going to multiply corresponding elements together and then add it all up. Okay, so if we do the first elements of each part, we're going to get -1 times 3. Do the middle, you'll get 0 times 0. Do the last part of each, so it's going to be 2 times 1. Add them up. Okay. Moving on, we're going to do the dot product of the first row, second column. Okay. So we're going to do the first row and now change to the second column. So we will get -1 times -2 plus 0 times -1 plus 2 times 2. Okay. Going on to the second row, first column. Okay, let's get rid of our red lines so we can redraw them. Okay, we are doing the dot product of the second column, second row, first column. Okay, so this is going to be 4 times 3 plus -3 times 0 plus 1 times 1. Okay, second row, second column. We need to do the dot product of the second row and second column. So we will get 4 times -1. Oops, sorry, made a mistake there. Okay, so it's going to be 4 times -2 plus -3 times -1 plus 1 times 2. Okay. Third row, first column. Okay, so we're going to do dot product of the third row and the first column. Okay, so we will get -2 times 3 plus 3 times 0 plus 5 times 1. Okay, last element. Okay, so we're going to do the third row, second column. Okay, so third row, second column. Okay, so we're going to get -2 times -2 plus 3 times -1 plus 5 times 2. Okay, so now we just have to do the arithmetic. Okay, so let's go down here. Okay, and we'll go ahead and write up the simplified form of C times D. Okay, so in the first row, first column, we're going to get -3 plus 0 plus 2, that's -1. Okay, and then top right, okay, we're going to get -1 times -2, that's +2 plus 0 plus 4, that's going to give us 6. Okay, second row, first column, this is going to be 12 plus 0 plus 1, that's 13. Okay, and then we've got -8 plus a +3, that's going to be -5. Okay, and then plus 2 will give us -3 there. Okay, bottom left, we're going to get -6 plus 0 plus 5, that's -1. And then lastly, we're going to get +4 minus 3 is 1 plus 10 is 11. All right, so that is C times D. Okay, so now we can go do the scalar multiplication. Okay, so remember, if you go back to the top, we've got to multiply this result by 3. Okay, so we're going to take every number inside and multiply it by 3. Okay, so we're going to get -3, 18, and then 3 times 13 is 39. 3 times -3 is -9. And then -3, 3 times 11 is 33. Okay, so this is the result of 3 times C times D. Okay, not the final answer. All right, we've got the 2 big pieces that we need. Okay, go back to the top. What do you have to do? Okay, you have to take our previous result that's in yellow, okay, the -1 times D times B, and now we have to add to that the result we just got, which is the 3 times the C times the D, okay, which is in the blue box. Okay, They are both 3 by 2 matrices. So since they're the same size, we are allowed to add them. Okay, so this is a really long problem. You can see I've run out of room. Okay, so I'm just going to go up here at the top. Okay, and do this last piece. Okay, so the first thing I need to go back down here and I need to write down what we got for -1 times d times b. So let's go ahead and write that down up top. Okay, so that result is going to be, let's see here, we're going to do, let's see, it's 13, 7, 2, 5, -1, -11. And then we're adding to that the result of what we just did, the result of 3 times c times d. So let's go write that down. Okay, so that result was -3, 18, 39, hold on, -9, and then -3, 33. Okay. All right, so just add these guys up and remember how you add matrices. Okay, they're the same size, so now we're just going to add corresponding elements. Okay, so 13 plus -3 is 10. 7 plus 18 is 25. And then 2 plus 39, that's 41. Okay, 5 plus a -9 is -4. And then -1 plus a -3 is another -4. And then last spot, bottom right, okay, -11 plus 33 is 22, okay? And this is the final answer, okay? That was a ton of work, and I'll even write right here, final answer, okay? But if you were able to follow this problem and understand it and even do it, then you really have a great grasp of basic matrix operations.